Do you want to become a talk show host? Do you have a great idea? Passionate World Talk Radio is currently looking for podcast hosts for our Internet Talk radio station. Please email us at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com with your name, email address, cell phone number, and podcast topic. In return, you will receive a 3-minute intro on air to a live audience about your podcast. Remember, just email us your name, email address, and your podcast topic, and in return, you will receive a free 3-minute intro on the air. How cool is that? Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain.
Hi, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, where our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guest may not represent those of the host or the station. Folks, you have to listen to this podcast. I'm so excited. This is a new topic I'm going to talk about. Very excited about it. And if you're a teacher, a principal, you're in education, you're going to want to listen to this podcast because I myself never heard of this syndrome. And with me today is Catherine Matthias, who is a certified Irlen Syndrome Screener. She is also the published author of 6 early reader picture books, 4 fiction and 2 nonfiction. And I want to know more about this syndrome. And I just have to say, I'm so thankful for what I do and being a host and giving people a platform. And I'm thankful to Lillian Caldwell, CEO, who has the station for people to be heard. And I want to welcome Catherine Matthias to Chatting with Betsy. Hi, Catherine. And you wrote this book. I forgot the name of the book, The WORD GOBBLERS, right in front of me.
It's The WORD GOBBLERS, yes. It's because of what it does to people's minds.
I get so excited. I almost forgot about the book.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about my last name for a while, and you got it right when we were talking privately. And then you switched it, probably in your excitement. It's Catherine Matthias. Three syllables. Matthias, yeah.
Catherine Matthias, yes. Here in New Jersey, Matthias, Matthias, all different ways.
It's
Catherine Matthias, yes.
Yeah. And many ways to spell it, too. Well, thank you for being so excited about my book. It's a handbook for parents and teachers working with children who are struggling to read.
And I have to ask, because I never heard of Irlen Syndrome. Can you tell the audience what is it?
Well, it's a syndrome that runs similar to autism from slight to very severe, although it's not autism. It's the improper processing of light waves by the brain, and then it's all of the different symptoms that causes. And it can be inherited. About 50% of people who have this inherited from one or both parents, or it can be caused by some kind of brain injury, either something like a concussion or a high fever. Certain viruses can cause this also. And so you might have a child who's just fine till they're 15, they're playing sports, they get a brain concussion, and suddenly their grades are going down, they're not reading, they're complaining that they can't see the words properly on the page, or they're getting headaches or stomach aches or dizziness. This syndrome is something that's been around probably for as long as humans have been here. But until we needed to read to progress in this world, it wasn't so evident, which is, like a lot of things that have to do with the brain. It's one thing to be an agricultural country And it's another thing to be a country where you're doing a great deal of reading. So what happens with light waves is some are coming in, and the Irlen Institute has been researching this since the 1980s. Does not know why yet, but they are studying this. That certain light waves are not getting to the center of the brain at the same time as others. So when we look at something, like let's say we're looking at a tree, we don't actually see the tree. We see light waves bouncing off that tree. Our brain puts those light waves together to form a picture. And that is why it takes a long time for babies to understand the world around them. Their brain is learning how to put together pictures. Well, imagine if they're only getting pieces of this picture. Their brain is overworking in order to put this picture together. And that can cause things, like I said, dizziness. It can cause headaches. If a child says after 10, 20 minutes of reading, oh, I have a stomach ache, believe them. They have a stomach ache, and it's from the reading, or a headache, or dizziness. It can also cause things like light sensitivity. We can get into a lot more of the symptoms as we go along into this conversation.
What I like about your book, Catherine, your handbook, is the way you describe Irlen syndrome, and also the pictures of what it looks like to a child or an adult who has Irlen syndrome. And it's quite different than, I would think, dyslexia, because with dyslexia, they say things, backwards. And, I mean, I'm 63 years old, and I never heard of this. And when I was looking at your pages, I was thinking, I know this has nothing to do with Irlen syndrome, but I was thinking to myself, people who have dementia, my husband had early onset Alzheimer's, had trouble reading, and he said the words were jumping around. And when I saw some of the pictures in your book, I'm wondering, is this what he saw? Like the words just jumping around or getting eaten up? And
it could be.
Yeah, that really struck me, in that way. And I just want to say to the audience, if you're a teacher in education of any type, especially in, I would say, grammar school, please buy this book. I think it would benefit your school, your children, and your library. But I just very excited about that. And what are some of the symptoms other than when the child complains of dizziness and a stomach ache would help a parent or guardian know that something is amiss when a child is reading?
Great question. There are several categories that symptoms fall in. For instance, is someone light sensitive? Are they bothered by sunlight? Are they always wearing sunglasses? That's a clue right there. Are they bothered by glare? I had a brain concussion in 2018, just a few weeks before I took the class to learn how to be a screener. I now wear Irlen spectral filters because I cannot stand glare, and it's from, I fell in my own bedroom, and I can't stand glare coming in even from the side of a window, say. So are you tired or drowsy under bright or fluorescent lights? Fluorescent lights are one of the worst things we can do to anybody, but especially to anyone who has Irlen syndrome. Fluorescent lights are the wrong colors for us, and they just make the brain work harder. So what you want to do is get rid of fluorescent lights if you can. If you get headaches or stomach aches from bright or fluorescent lights, if you feel antsy or fidgety when you're under those kind of lights. So there's that one category. Are you light sensitive? And then what types of reading difficulties do you have? Like if somebody told me under light sensitivity that 3 or 4 of these things applied to them, I'd be very suspicious that they have Irlen syndrome. But we have a very intricate questionnaire that we ask people before we screen them. And they can even go on Irlen.com and see the long form or the short form. Do people skip words or lines when they're reading? Do they have to repeat or reread lines? People I have screened have said they'll read a paragraph and they'll understand it sentence by sentence, but when they get done, they really haven't comprehended it. They have to go back and read it again. This is another clue. Do they read in stop and go rhythm? Do they admit small words? After my brain concussion, I never had problems writing emails. Now I skip small words, like it or is or something like that. I'm so happy for having Google look after in blue line when I leave a word out. Does reading become harder the longer someone reads? If someone avoids reading, all kids love to read until it gets too hard for them. People love to read unless it's too hard for them. We all love stories, but what happens is if reading is making you sick, then the only time you read is if you need it for your job or instructions. It's amazing how many companies hardly put any instructions in with tools or machinery they're sending out. They send pictures. You're supposed to build this cabinet that you buy. They'll send you pictures because they know people don't read. Do they not read for pleasure? That's another category. I'll just give you some quick categories without giving you all of the questions in it. While reading or using a computer, do people squint or open their eyes wide? Do they feel fatigued, tired, or have headaches? What happens with your handwriting? People who write up or downhill, they have unequal spacing between letters and words or unequal letter size. Some people are unable to write on a line. Do they leave out words, letters, or punctuation marks? And even though dyslexia, people are switching letters and all kinds of things happen with dyslexia, that can also happen with Irlen syndrome. And an interesting thing about dyslexia, about 1/3 of people diagnosed with dyslexia do not have dyslexia. They have Irlen syndrome. And one of the ways you can tell if your child is being treated for dyslexia with specialized teaching methods is they're not making any progress. Because somebody who only has dyslexia, they'll make progress. They'll catch up in weeks or months or years of the specialized teaching. So what you need to do is fix the Irlen syndrome first. And if they have both, once you have the Irlen, and you can't really fix it, you can only ameliorate it. But if the child is now wearing spectral lenses or they're using special colored paper or the overlays, then the work they do for dyslexia can take hold and they will improve. Another 1/3 of those who are diagnosed with dyslexia have both Irlen syndrome and dyslexia. That's a nightmare. And that's why you have to really find out if they have the Irlen syndrome so you can do it first. And, of course, there's about 1/3 of them who only have dyslexia, and the things we do for Irlen syndrome wouldn't be helpful for them. Another thing is attention and concentration. You can see immediately children who have attention deficit disorder, or they're just, jumping around all the time, scratching their arms, their head, touching their faces. They get Irlen spectral filters on, and that calms their brain down. It's hard for people to copy from a board, looking at a green board up at the front of the room, and the teacher's putting stuff on. You're supposed to go from there to your page. That's very hard for people with this. Mathematics, things are not aligned correctly for you, or you make really easy mistakes. Like you could say to a child, what's 2 times 3? And they'll tell you 6, but if you write it down for them, they can't tell you. Music, people who can't read music, but they can learn by ear, they may have Irlen syndrome. Depth perception is a huge one. Are they clumsy, difficulty getting on and off elevators, can't parallel park, for instance. Children who are called clumsy, it's not helpful to call a child clumsy. If their depth perception is off and they reach for a glass, they think the glass is farther away than it is. And so they knock that glass over, or they walk into doorknobs, walk into table corners, that kind of thing. Poor sports performance. I had a child who was a tennis player. She was in her teens, and she really needed Irlen spectral filters. Her father did not want her to get that because she was a good golf player, but it was because she was compensating, and he was afraid if she had better depth perception, it would throw her game off. You know, it's that old leading a horse to water, and you can't make him take a step. Driving is difficult, or fatigue while driving. Those are all categories of things that people can be affected by. And I'm sorry, that was a long list. I took up a lot of time. No, that's
okay. My mind is spinning here, thinking of I'm just really curious as to are the people in school, the educators, the child study team, the special education teachers, are they informed about this Irlen syndrome?
Well,
to test the child?
I'm sorry, say that question again. The last part of that, they with the child?
Yeah, to test the child. As the special education teachers, do they know about this, the Irlen syndrome?
Not very many in America. England has lots and lots of, I don't think they're testing in their schools, but they have lots and lots of screeners and diagnosticians there. I think Australia started early, back in the 90s, testing every child for this. I haven't talked to anybody about whether they're still doing that or not, but that's how it should be by the time you're 8 or 9. And here's what happens when you're learning to read. It's not easy to pick out that a child has this problem because they're working with individual letters. They're working with small words like cat or dog, or even small sentences. The cat took a nap. They might get through that, but they're reading it in spite of the distortions. And children think the guy next to them, the girl on the other side, that they all see the page the same way they do. And then as they start to read to learn things, and they start reading in long sentences and in paragraphs, that's when they start to really fall behind. I've only had to test 1 or 2 children who were very young, like 7 years old. And in that case, I had to use individual letters with striped backgrounds that went in different directions, or checkered backgrounds, and see if they could go and find the ones that matched. Do you remember those when you were a kid, where you had to circle things that matched each other?
Yes.
Well, that's how you work with younger children to find out if they have this. And when you take a colored page, that is the page that they're more comfortable with, they can make those matches easier. Or you put a filter over their plastic colored overlay over their page. That's the right one for them. And it takes a good 1.5 to 2 hours to test somebody and find their right color for overlays. But once you do that, you can see their change right then and there in front of you. I had a young boy who was 9 years old, and he was about a year behind in reading. And just talking to him, he was obviously very bright. His grandmother brought him in, and I had to stop the session after 45 minutes and take him outside to walk around for a while because he was so hyper. And during this time, I found out what colors were his best colors. And I had him read black ink on white paper, and he made a lot of mistakes. He was very hesitant. It was very stop-and-go reading. I never criticized him. I never pointed it out. His grandmother and I just listened to that reading. And then I knew which color was best for him. It was a dark aqua blue, and I put that on top. And then he did a different paragraph because I didn't want it for memorization. He did a different paragraph, but at the same level of difficulty for his reading abilities. And you could hear right on the spot how much improved he was just that one time. And he looked up at me and just gave me the biggest smile because he heard it too. And I glanced over at the grandmother, and she had tears running down her face because she loves him so much. She's watched him struggle, and she also heard it. That's how amazing that was. Now, it's not that amazing instantly for everyone. And, it's different with adults, with children. You have to work with them a little differently. But black ink on white paper is the hardest thing for anyone with Irlen to deal with. Some people need a soft blue. Some people need a rose color or peach or purple or green. And there's 10 colors that a screener has. And we can some people need 3 different colors. They might need yellow on top of a rose color with a gray blue on top of that. And it takes a long time to figure out what these are. I have hundreds of different combinations from just these 10 colors that I can make for somebody to figure out what's their most comfortable color. And that's the most important question you ask someone while you're screening them. Not which is easier to read, but which one do you feel the most comfortable looking at? And people almost always know, even little kids. The only thing you have to be careful of is that they don't pick a favorite color, like pink. And I tell them, I'm not looking for your favorite color. That can still be your favorite color. I'm looking for the one where you feel, some sense of relief when you look at this page through that color. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yes, that's just amazing to me. By any chance, Catherine, can a eye doctor diagnose Irlen syndrome? Do they know about that?
If they take the class. I am very, very lucky in my community to have an eye doctor. His name is Dr. Bailey. And I went to him. I told him about this. I didn't have my book written yet, but I went to him when I first learned about how to be a screener. And I told him I would be sending people to him, not for the glasses. The glasses have to come from the Irlen Institute. And but if they needed a prescription, like I have a prescription, and I have to get them from my eye doctor on a very specific R39 plastic, and they can't have coatings on them, and they can't have non-glare on them. They then get sent down to the Irlen Institute because I went to a diagnostician, and she tells them my exact formula. There are over 100,000 different formulas. Everybody's different. Some people just need one color. Most people need 4 or 5. There are people who have had as many as 20, 22, 24 colors in very specific order. And that coating is saturated into that plastic. Now, you might wear those for a year, and then you need them changed. And if you don't need your prescription changed, you can send them down and alter the colors in there. And that's because it's helping heal your brain, especially for people when it's like a brain concussion. I've had to change my formula twice now because my brain is actually healing itself by using these filters. So
that's amazing.
I don't know, did that answer that question?
Yes, that's incredible.
I want to go back to if I can, I'll go back to my eye doctor. So he's been very good with people.
Oh, go ahead.
But I had a woman call me whose daughter was diagnosed with this, and she lived in a town with 2 eye doctors, and they both ridiculed the daughter. Now, that's not helpful. So she brings her daughter 75 miles, 150 miles round trip to come to the doctor in my county that understands what this is. So there's a lot of education that needs to be out there for eye doctors. There are a lot of eye doctors that will give you colored filters. They may be making the situation worse. There are some people who actually find their colors by accident. A man, I was told by a friend that a friend of theirs was a electrical engineer. And one of the reasons he liked it was everything was on blue paper, and it made it easier for him to read. But one day he put on orange eyeglasses and they made the world better for him. And he was just lucky. He just tripped on it. But sometimes people pick their favorite colors, and those colors are actually making the situation worse.
Catherine, how does someone get in contact with a Irlen screener if they want to be tested
online
as a child?
Yeah, they can go online to Irlen, IRLEN.com, and go onto their website, and there's a section where it will take you to a list of screeners in your area. Now, not every screener is necessarily listed on there, but they will take you to screeners in that area. The other thing you can do is just Google Irlen screeners in, Tucson, Arizona, or wherever you live, and those should pop up. And
where can people purchase your book?
Just about anywhere. I'm a major supporter of local bookstores, so you can call your local bookstore and ask them to order the Word Gobblers by Catherine Matthias, or any of the major bookstores online, or even if you don't want to go to your local bookstore, you could call them or go online to their website and ask them to carry it. But it is on all the major sites now. But I just love local bookstores. So.
Yes. Well, Catherine, I can't thank you enough for doing your book, writing your book, and making people aware of Irlen syndrome. And I think that people should get your handbook, especially educators. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but really, if you are in the education field, you need to have this book in your library, and you need to educate yourself about it to help the children that you teach. And I'm sure that these children are probably bullied in school, which doesn't help any when you are,
There's a section in the book about bullying, because when you can't read, you are usually bullied by others who can. And, it's not your fault. You're not lazy. You're not stupid. You're not slow. You're not clumsy. It's no different than having an allergy to strawberries or peanuts or milk. It's something you're either born with or you acquire over time through an accident or a fever. You're not at fault, and I think it's very important for a child to know that. And then to be given these tools. Somebody, if all you do is change the lighting, if you allow a child that has this to wear a brimmed hat in school and to sit as close to windows as possible, there are so many things you can do that will help. There are magnifying bars that are shaped almost like a long candy bar, and it's a magnifier, and you can give that to a child to move across the line. That will help them. Larger type helps them. Once you know what their most comfortable color is, and you can even spread out colors of paper in front of your child and tell them, I'm not asking you to pick your favorite color. Which color makes your eyes feel the best, makes your brain or your tummy feel the best? And when they pick that out, get their homework done on that. All their tests should be on these colors, not black on white. I don't know if we have another minute, but I have another story for you if that's helpful. I had
sure.
A woman.
But go ahead. Go ahead.
I had a young woman who talked to me because she had been almost 2 years behind in school when she was younger, and she wanted to know if she had this. But just by the time I got done the intake questionnaire, I was 98% positive she didn't, because what she told me was they finally, when she was in 6th grade, gave her specialty reading teachers. And within 9 months, she caught up to grade level after being a couple grades behind. Well, as soon as she told me that, and she was diagnosed with dyslexia, I was pretty sure she only had dyslexia. So that's one of the ways you tell if you're catching up. And she said to me at the end she did have a favorite color. She did have a color she was comfortable with, but she said to me, well, what if I still prefer black ink on white paper. And I looked at her and I said, then you don't have Irlen syndrome. That and knowing you caught up as a child. So we learn a lot just by the amount of questions we ask before we even sit a person down to go through all of the tasks and tests that we go through with them.
That's amazing. I want to thank you so much for coming on Chatting with Betsy.
Very welcome. Yeah. Well,
and sharing.
I really appreciate your having me on.
You know. Oh, you're welcome. Do you have a website, Catherine, where people could get in touch with you?
Yes, it's just CatherineMatthias.com, and it's MATTHIAS as in Sam, Catherine, CATHERINE, just those, my name.com, and you'll get to my website. You can also put in the Word Gobblers on Facebook, and you can ask me questions on Facebook too if you want. And you can get a hold of me by email through my website.
Oh, great. Oh, you're on Facebook too. That's cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. And again, go to your local bookstore, go to the bigger ones, and please get this book. I can't impress it enough, especially if you are in education or if you're a parent or guardian and you think your child is having a difficulty. I am so glad that Catherine came on and shared her information. This is what my show, Chatting with Betsy, is about, helping other people and letting people have a platform to share information to help others. And if you missed any of this podcast, you could catch it on your favorite podcast outlet. It is free to subscribe to Chatting with Betsy on Spotify, Spreaker, CastBox, and wherever you hear your favorite podcast. Appreciate you to subscribe and to share the podcast to help others. And I just want to thank Jeannie White, station manager at Passion World Talk Radio Network, for writing the blog. Please read the blogs that will have information about Catherine and the book, and for producing the show. And again, I had to thank Elaine Caldwell, CEO, who sent me the press release about Catherine Matthias and her book. And I'm just grateful, folks. I really am. I love what I do, and my show is about helping people. I mean, that's it. And I just, want to help people, and that's my vision, that's my goal. And I have a public service announcement because I cannot believe it's going to be September on Wednesday. September is World Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Not that people who live with Alzheimer's, the caregivers, need a month. It is for you, the public. But for those of you who have any type of Alzheimer's, early onset, or even any dementia, post your journey. Post your pictures on your page and educate people. I posted about my husband, my late husband, Matthew. Let people see the reality of this disease. Let's put a name to the face of this disease and let people know. We need to get out of the dementia closet and out into the spotlight and be proud that we are caregivers, or that you were a caregiver, and that's what I have to say. So until we chat again, this is Betsy Wurzel, your host at Chatting with Betsy and Passion World Talk Radio Network. Please be safe, everybody. Bye-bye.
Do you want to become a talk show host? Do you have a great idea? Passionate World Talk Radio is currently looking for podcast hosts for our Internet Talk radio station. Please email us at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com with your name, email address, cell phone number, and podcast topic. In return, you will receive a 3-minute intro on air to a live audience about your podcast. Remember, just email us your name, email address, and your podcast topic, And in return, you will receive a free 3-minute intro on the air. How cool is that? Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You can listen to this program all over again by going over to https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also hear it on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon ALEXA, AMFM247.com every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9 p.m. YouTube, Facebook, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and all the other podcast directories one can find on the Internet.